Okay. In the shop in wherever we are in Lyne.
I did, but my little sister had a different one because she was 2 years younger than me, and hers was a Mickey Mouse gas mask, and it was red, and it had a little nose on it that wobbled up and down. Yeah. The tiny babies had a whole case they used to get in, and the mum used to pump it at the side. But I had one of these because I was 7 when the war broke out, and I had one like this.
You were supposed to, you had to take them everywhere with you. You were never allowed to be without them, and people, there used to be wardens walking in the roads who'd say, have you got your gas mask? You were never allowed to go outside without it.
Is this in London?
Yeah, I was in London. Were you in London?
Yes, I was in London, yes. I remember the man coming round to give us all the gas masks. He gave one to each member of the family. It had a bit of string through there. And mums used to make little cotton bags to put them in so that you would recognise your own one. Because they all look the same, you see. They all do these little cardboard boxes.
Yes. So is this one of the baby's ones?
That's a baby one.
That's right, yes, you put the baby inside and then you pumped up and down
with that
for the air. I would have thought it would frighten babies. Do you remember ever seeing a baby in
I
one?
never saw a baby in one, no, but I remember seeing them around. I remember more the Mickey Mouse ones, the red ones, which had a little wobbly nose, and I was jealous of my sister. I would have liked one of those instead of this boring old thing. Although we used to make rude noises with it, put our hand on there and it used to make like a raspberry noise, which probably meant it didn't work at all, but there you go. Can you imagine having to wear that? Yeah. Can you imagine having to wear that thing? We used to put our hand over there and make raspberry noises, which probably meant it didn't work at all. Isn't it horrible?
You have to wear them when you're evacuated.
Well, the thing was, we were supposed to, everybody, because of the First World War, there'd been such a problem with gas in the trenches in the First World War that it was expected that we would wear gas masks. And we never actually had to wear them at all, but we did have to take them with us. Certainly in the beginning, everyone was very conscious of the fact we thought we were all going to be gassed.
But did they actually use gas masks?
No, not at all.
No.
Not
So
at
you
all.
didn't really need
No, they were entirely useless. Like taking all the railings down was entirely useless. They had lovely iron railings in London. They were all taken away to make ammunition and machines and things with, and they were never used. Which is very sad.
I wonder where they all went.
I get some great warehouses somewhere.
I can remember the day when the men came round to chop all the railings down, and then they chopped them off all the coping stones. Remember the cope? No, you don't remember the coping. But every house in London had a little coping outside with a rake.
What's a coping?
The coping is the little wall outside the house,
Oh, yeah.
which used to have railings on it, and they cut them all down, took them away.
That's why you see houses now without railings.
Still,
they haven't been replaced.
What, they'd melt them down?
Yeah, they melt them down to, I don't know what they thought they were going to do with them. Presumably make tanks, or I don't know.
Took all the park railings away at last.
Yes, they did.
Well, I needed to do that because I had to dig air raid shelters in the parks.
Did they do that in Greenwich? Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't live in Greenwich then.
No,
I
I don't know.
in South London, but they certainly did there, yes.
So not so many people had individual air raid shelters, did they all share them?
No, you had communal ones. I thought they were great fun. I loved the war. I was 3 when the war broke out, and I thought it was great because it meant you didn't have to go to bed at night, or if you did go to bed you got woken up in the middle of the night, and it was like Guy Fawkes night, you know, because there were always bonfires and wonderful flames and noise and activity and things happening. I thought it was the most exciting thing, and you'd sleep in funny places or you wouldn't sleep at all. People made a fuss of you. I loved it.
So, were you in London most of the time?
I was in London up until the time the fly bombs came. The fly bombers were the, what were they called, the V2s, weren't they? The V2s, the rockets. They had these aeroplanes that didn't have anybody in them, and they just came bung, 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 bung over London, and when you heard them stop, you knew they were going to fall. And they were going to fall on you, and they were very dangerous, those. And so I got sent to my grandmother's, and I lived in the North Country in England with my grandmother, and I'd never been bombed, and I'd never actually known anybody who was bombed. And the first night when I stayed with my grandmother, there was an earthquake, and I was pushed out of bed and the whole house shook, and it was a very rare in this country, earthquakes. I had an earthquake.
I was never bombed, but all our windows were blown out. One night, a laundry was bombed just at the end of the road. all the windows came out and all the glass stuck in all the furniture. So they had to take all the furniture away because it was full of glass. Mind you, we weren't very frightened as children. We didn't really
understand, you know. We used to collect shrapnel. That was little pieces of bombs, little pieces of metal. And everybody used to... Did you collect shrapnel?
Oh, yes, shrapnel's very exciting.
Yeah.
Bits of metal all sort of screwed up in funny shapes.
Everybody had collections of shrapnel.
Especially boys.
Yes,
they used to
especially
climb
boys.
on all the bomb sites to get shrapnel. Very dangerous. But they used to
Dad told me he stuffed it all in his mouth.
It was illegal. You weren't allowed to do it, so you had to be careful the wardens didn't see you doing it.
So, were you just staying with your mothers in London?
Before evacuation? Yes, just with the family. Yes, yes.
How long was it before you were evacuated?
It was early on in the war. We were all sent off in a hurry, just to Surrey, and then we all came back.
Hurried to Surrey.
We hurried to Surrey, which isn't very far from London, but it was just a scary time. Everybody was a bit worried, so they sent the children off. And then we came back because nothing happened. The parents gradually brought us back, yes.
But then, did you go when the doodlebug started?
Oh, that was towards the end of the war, yes.
These things here.
What does it say on it?
Ration book.
Ration book.
Russian book, that's right, yes. You had to have coupons for your food. You couldn't have, there wasn't very much food, and so food was rationed. So you had coupons for tea and coupons for sugar and sweet coupons and coupons for clothes and all sorts of meat, yes, coupons for meat, except offal.
Except offal was an off coupon.
Do you know what offal is?
Liver.
Offal's the liver and all the kidneys and all the bits and pieces inside the animal. And sometimes you'd see on the butcher shops offal today, and there'd be a great queue of people because offal wasn't rationed. But what you did, if you didn't take much sugar, you'd save up your sugar coupons, and then you give your sugar coupons to somebody who, say, didn't drink tea. So they'd swap you their tea coupons for your sugar coupons, so you get a bit more. But there was very little. I remember we had 1 egg a week for 4 of us, and it was usually off.
Right, Sunday shadow, sorry.
With glasses, so I can't see.
To mark the ration book. And the lady would come with her ration book. She'd have a family. She'd have about 4 or 5 of these. She'd give them to me, and I would find the meat bit, which is just there. That's the meat bit. And I would, with a pencil, draw a line down. And that meant that that person had had all their meat for that week, which was 10 pence worth. Old money.
And how much was that in actual quantity then?
Oh, about a chop.
A chop for how many people? For one person?
1 person.
Yes, so you'd have
For a
one
week?
Yes.
Per week. And 2 penny worth of corned beef.
If you
The
were
rest of the time.
What did you get most of?
Ask my mother, I've no idea.
terrible. They used to make, my mother used to make a lot of soup out of bones and things. My father, I remember, he used to steal vegetables, and he had a catapult, and he used to go out and kill rabbits sometimes with his catapult. But food is terribly difficult.
Did people
Fish
try and
wasn't
keep
that.
chickens and things together?
Yes, yes,
And was
yes.
that allowed?
Yes, it was allowed, yes. Some people in the country kept pigs. Of course, you were much better off in the country, of course, because food was much easier, because you could keep animals and grow vegetables. People had allotments, you know, there were lots of allotments. It was called digging for victory. You had to dig in your garden and grow vegetables and things like that.
And sweets were on ration.
Sweets, yes, ice cream. I kept hearing about ice cream. All my childhood people kept telling me about when the war's over, you know, you'll be able to have some ice cream. And eventually, when the war was over, actually the food was worse the year after the war. The food was much worse, there was far less food around. But eventually they said that the newsagents over there is going to be ice cream. And there was this great queue, for miles this queue went. We all queued up for the ice cream. And eventually, when I got to the counter and they'd sold out, I never had my ice cream.
Oh dear.
So I waited the whole war for nutrition. And in fact, it was because we know so much about food now because of the war. And before the war, people used to overeat like mad. So that, in fact, it was a very good thing.
Well,
Well, the food was, and the generation, of course, that in the war, generation of children, Pam and myself, didn't have tooth decay because we didn't have sweet things, you know. And we grew much more than our parents did because the nutrition was actually better. Although I remember being hungry. I was hungry my whole childhood. I always remember that. It was awful.
This ration book says 1951 to 50.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it went on quite a long time after the war, the rationing. Because it was actually worse. The years just after the war were worse, much
Why was
worse.
that?
Well, I suppose they'd made a big effort during the war, and when the war was over, the money was going into other things. I don't really know why it was. Probably lack of organisation, lack of money.
Oh,
There was
yes.
so much to do after the war.
Golly, it's very heavy. I didn't know the poor old wardens had to wear such heavy hats. People didn't like wardens, because wardens used to ride around on their bikes, say, "Put that light out!"
You had to have something called blackout. You had black curtains at all your windows because not a chink of light must show, and they took away all the road signs because in case the Germans came over, they wouldn't be able to find where they were, but of course nobody else could find where they were either. And the wardens all used to come round if there was a chink of light showing and saying, put that light out.
Ever so many people had black eyes and bloody noses because they were all bumping into things at night. Loads of people did, didn't they?
Yeah,
Ladies
they did.
and
They
men,
did.
such a lot of people did. I remember
did.
that. So we were bumping into things at night.
You were allowed a torch, weren't you, but with a tiny
Yes.
little light and you had to hold it down.
Tissue paper on it,
Tell
I
them-
just remembered. My mother used to put tissue paper on the torch because we weren't allowed to have it without anything on it.
Yes.
Just
You
remember
had to
that.
shine it down on the ground and be very, very careful.
But you weren't really scared.
I loved it.
I
I was a bit younger than Pam. You see, I was only 3 when the war broke out,
I was 7.
and so I was too young really to understand. So it was just like a perpetual Guy Fawkes night. It was just one wonderful party to me.
I thought every bomb was coming on me.
Did you?
I was very frightened, yes, being under the stairs and hearing the noise like sheets tearing as the bomb comes down. It's all whoosh, and then a boom, and your feet would tingle because the ground had
Did
moved.
you have any near misses then?
Yes, lots, because I lived in Wandsworth, which was very heavily bombed in the war. It was very frightening. To me it was at 7. And the noise of the bombers, the wail of the siren, then this sort of rumble of bombers. To me, they were coming to bomb me.
Yeah.
You know, I was very frightened.
And what about your mother? Did she work in the war?
No, my mother only worked after we were evacuated. I think ladies had to go to work if their children weren't with them. There was a ruling brought in. She went to work in the post office, sorting out the envelopes for ships.
Yeah.
And she loved it because she hadn't been going to work for a long time. And it was great for some women. I mean, they actually got out of the home and started to work, and they liked it.
I did very well. I had a very, there's a phrase, you know, that people use about the war saying they had a very good war. Thinking about it, I obviously had a very good war. Because we were living, at one point we went to live in a place called Manchester, which is a big city up in the north of England. And the Manchester Blitz was a very famous bombing session that the Germans did. They flattened Manchester. Manchester's a huge city, and they flattened it. Now, the day before the Manchester Blitz, we had been into Manchester, and I'd seen in a toy shop a little stuffed panda about that big, and I wanted it so much, and my parents said, no, you can't have it. You really can't have it. And I was terribly upset I couldn't have it. And we went back at night, and then Manchester was bombed in the night. And the next day we went to look in Manchester, and it was all just burning buildings, just piles of rubbish, just like bonfires everywhere. And we went down somewhere I didn't recognise, and there were all these just piles of rubble. And just outside, the remains of a shop, there was this pile of rubble and burning stuff, and there was this panda, and he was all singed down one side. And my father got out of the car and picked him up and gave him to me. And I had it all my life.
You still got it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, I carried my teddy all through the war. I've got pictures taken when I was living with my foster parents. That's the lady and the gentleman who were my, pretend mother and father in the country. And they used to take us on holiday and didn't take so many photographs in those days, and they were all black and white. And I've got lots of pictures of me as a little girl about your size, holding my teddy bear, which was called Shirley Temple actually, but Shirley for short. And I've still got it. Looks a bit bedraggled, but never mind, it's still there. So she's been through the war as well.
Can't do anything like that.
So what about these identity cards? Did you have to carry these all the time with you?
Everybody had one of those. And I remember my number, DNE1455. Now, I must have been told that when I was 7, because that's when we had
And
to
you
carry
remember it
them.
from then?
And I've never forgotten it. So I think mums and dads used to instill a number into their children. I don't remember them doing
What
it.
did
They
you
must
have to? What did it say about you?
It's just your name and address.
In case you got lost? or-
Yeah, no, and if you got hurt or anything, and also when you went round the country, when you got off the railway station, you had to show your identity card.
Yeah. You had to show your identity card a lot. Just prove who you were. You weren't a German spy. I mean, there was a lot of talk about German spies. And German spies weren't all sort of tall men in black Macintoshes, you know. I mean, they were harmless
they
looking
weren't
children.
No, but nevertheless you had to have it. I remember going to Canvey Island, which is in the Thames Estuary, to visit my grandmother. That's the time I remember having it, because my mother said, here, you hold your card, you can show it to the man. Now, the man was a sort of warden, and as you went by, you had to show your card.
There always, do you remember the butterfly bombs? We were always
yes.
being warned by policemen not to pick up any pretty thing we saw lying in the road, because they were bombs that the Germans had dropped, disguised to look very pretty or very attractive, so that children would pick them up and then they'd be blown up.
Nasty.
Horrid. Doing men.
Oh yes,
Oh, make
clothes.
doing men
Actually, I,
clothes.
do you know, I still do it. I suppose it's instilled into
Yeah.
us. There's so many things that really are.
It's so
Let's
good.
take that out, just to see that. Horrible things.
I remember they
Used to have drills
smelt so horrible.
Yeah, used to have drill at school.
Yes, gas mask
Gas
drill.
mask drill.
Don't know what they thought was going to happen, but as I said, it had been such a feature of the First World War that they just said poison gas. They just thought mustard gas, I think it was, wasn't it, that they used in the First World War? And they just thought that that it was going to happen this time round.
Had so many clothes. There's so many for a coat and so
You
many
were told to get
shoes.
out all your old clothes and make them into new clothes and use them all up, because you couldn't afford clothes.
Very hard.
The food was the worst, though. Never get a parachute, because you could make yourself a wonderful dress out of a parachute.
And night dresses and cami knickers, as we used to call them, which was sort of underwear, tops and bottoms all in one.
All in one, yes.
Made of that lovely silk.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.